Hello, everybody. If you're just watching this later, feel free to skip ahead 3 minutes, 4 minutes, something in that world, because we are just going to wait for some folks to join. This is a live webinar, but we do host it on YouTube. So, again, if you're hearing this because we have no attendees currently, that means you're watching it on YouTube. So just fast forward 3 minutes or so. Well, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of talking. Um, Welcome in. Like I said, I know that if you're hearing this voice, that means you're watching on YouTube. So I'll share some stuff kind of while we're waiting. We do have Solutions Marketplace. We had a new project launch for version 8 instances called Loan Origination. It's on version 8 only, though, as far as I know. So, but it is a massive project. Decision Solution Marketplace. Look at that. Wow. And I do believe it should be on here. And if it's not, you'll have to just take my word for it. Uh, there, there. Look at right there at the top, feature loan origination. So, this is a massive project, just super duper big. I just made some content for it. I'm not sure if it's fully attached to this yet. It's not, but it may be shortly. I went through, this is a massive project. It can help you in a couple different ways. Way number one is if you install a module, which again, these are free on the App Store. I can kind of show you where they're at. Again, I think this is limited to version 8 in its current iteration. Um, but it helps you with a couple things. One, you get some really cool CSS with it. Number two, you can check out the building paradigm of how this kind of is organized. It's an entity-driven design, which is kind of a cool way to kind of watch an entity go through a process, as well as you can kind of utilize some of these forms and dashboards and other stuff in other parts of your project. So again, this is old but new. So it's been in development for a long time, but it is new as a formal release. See if we have a release date or something on here. It can't be more than a couple days. But again, this is a massive, massive project. I went through and made some content for it. So now that we have some folks on the other side of the line, the webinar line, if you have any questions, this is Robert, by the way. I may not have adjusted my name. I did not. But yeah, feel free to ask away in the chat if you're just here to listen and hang out like many of you guys do. I appreciate that too. You know, no pressure to ask a question. I have things I can show off. But if you have a question, it'd be nice to kind of get a little bit of guidance on that. But again, this is brand new public facing. Um, Again, I don't think that you can get it in version 9. So if that's you, you might have to find a workaround. But we can check. If you're on version 8, for sure it's in the App Store because I got it from the App Store a couple days ago. But let's check on version 9, loan origination, alphabetical, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Nope, it is not available on 9. So on 8 only. But that's maybe a good option for you. If you want to download it, you can look at how these things are built out. You know, it's just like a nice, again, you get, with some of these downloads, you'll get some CSS code, you'll get some forms, some dashboards, and a lot of that stuff you can just repurpose for your own project. So, again, there are on that loan origination, if you're on 8 or below, there's like 11 different dashboards and there's 157 flows and there's a million forms, and the way the settings entity works is really awesome. So, um, again, I'm open to questions. Feel free to hit the chat, hit the QA, anything in that world. Give me something to talk about. And if not, if you're just here to listen in, I'll just start winging it here in about 30 seconds. So, oh, we got the chat. Nice. Is there an easy way to create the following UI? A list of expandable checkboxes. Each list has a checkbox each, okay, uh, list of expandable checkboxes, and each list, or and each has a list of checkboxes, kind of like a tree. Okay, I get what you're saying. Also adjusting the UI when the parent is expanded and collapsed. I think I've seen stuff like that before, or seen that question in like our internal before. Let me see if I can do a little bit of research here on the sidelines while I do it. If not, I'll gladly do a little bit of building, but I can tell you, sir, I know you got a better grasp on this than me. Let me look here. Collapse. Resize. I'm looking on our little side of the line here. I'm seeing a little bit of pinging in like a lot of times when I see the word collapse on our kind of like internal, everyone's saying like, oh yeah, you can do a CSS. So it might be a CSS, but let's gladly just build. You get it doesn't collapse. Um, yeah. Yeah. So I'm seeing a post about collapsibility of header containers, which is kind of like maybe the path that I was maybe going to walk down, but I'll gladly just start building, having some fun. I'm lunching. Well, I'm not lunching, but I'm learning. So let's mess with this form here. Let's say expandable checkboxes. And if anybody else has a question, feel free to put in the chat. I'll gladly talk about anything you want. Okay, so we each expandable checkboxes and each has a list of checkboxes. Let me think about how I would develop that. And then having them collapse automatically is another beast in itself. Mm. I know this isn't what you want. I'm just putting it on here to free my brain up here a little bit. I know this isn't what you want, but I'm just gonna kind of put something on here. Okay, so that's I've done that for display only, but I need to know if the parent node is checked and which items are selected. Yeah, I've done that for display only, but I need to know if the parent node is checked and which items child underneath are selected. Yeah, that's a good question, VT. That's Holly. Okay, let's just put a button on here to clear out some of this validation stuff. All right. Hmm. Tree view probably isn't going to help you, right? I've never even messed with tree view, but it probably just shows you data. It would be my imagine. And it's not going to give you options to check. I think it just shows the view. All right, so you're saying parent node should be multi-select list. I see multi-select drop down. I see the list box. The list box is not it either. We got checkbox list. Yeah, I'm not sure, ET. Just be totally honest, man. Um, it's something I can go ask the folks in PS. As soon as it's over, I can go ask them and I'll email you. They would generally know the path of least resistance there. Um, I think the first part is certainly achievable. The second part, adjusting UI height when parent is expanded and collapsed, that's going to be a little more challenging on my brain. It's kind of like a checkbox list nested in a checkbox list, right? But you're not really given that option as far as this goes. I mean, you could do some type of active form flow, but it's not going to pop. If the UI is not going to be the way you want it, and you can get functionality with a lesser UI, and I'm sure you know this. You could get functionality with a lesser UI. But I'm trying to think here if anything. I wonder if there's additional functionality on some of this stuff that we just kind of got to mess with. Hmm. Expandable checkboxes. Each has a list of checkboxes. Yeah, so I'll even unmute you. Sorry, man. So when you want to basically be able to check a box, when you check a box, it populates fields underneath that box. And then if you uncheck it, it recollapses.
Well, the things. So you should be able to check box and then expand that list. And let's say you have countries like US,
Yeah,
Canada, Mexico, for example. And for each of them, you should be able to select, let's say I would like US and Canada. And then when I expand US, I will be able to select states for US. And when I expand Canada, I would should be
hit
able to,
provinces.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know the UI isn't good. I mean, you could populate a second checkbox over here. I mean, obviously, I'm sure you know that.
Mhm.
Um, but having it be a tree like that, love that.
I could probably simplify that, saying that you selected US, I pulled US states. Then if you select US and Canada, I pulled a list of states and provinces, but that's not perfect UI experience.
Right. Have you gotten a way to populate the tree design that you're talking about? Like, how would I sub with this, have it expand down for my own knowledge here?
So the current UI design is you can check US, but on the right-hand side, you will say expand that to select states. By default, they will be all states. The same for Canada. If you check, then you expand, you can exclude, for example, one state or one province by unchecking that province or state.
And where's that expand option in here?
Um, it's pretty much like if you use header, so you can make that header expandable, collapsible.
Right, but it's not going to populate in here.
Right.
Right.
Well, I mean, if I have like a list of headers, let's say in the aesthetic, US, Canada, and Mexico. So I will have three headers. They all collapsible. When I
Hmm.
expand, let's say US, I can select states, but how would I know that they actually meant to select that header if they want to use that?
Still just thinking here. I know that you have a more inside the box, like you have a more experience with this in the box. I'm trying to think of some outside of the box options here that would have a similar UI feel to what you want, but maybe a different way to get there. Um, mm, yeah, the more I'm thinking here. Yeah, again, not ideal, but maybe something in this world, a tabbed container, a menu container, and then have it populate based on these fields. And it's not, again, not the UI you desire, but I'm imagining, and there might be some CSS that could get it closer. You could have some, I'm sure someone who knows it could speak to it a little better than I could, but um, something in this world where under tab one, you have a checkbox list, you know, that kind of thing. But again, it's not going to be auto collapsible. You're still going to have all that other UI stuff. And I know this isn't the answer you really need, but you could populate this, going this way, strings, static list items, in that world. Um, and same thing as you go down, but it's, again, not the UI you exactly want, but it's something in the world of it. I said I'll talk with PS and see if they have a better working solution. I'll talk with some of the folks that spend a lot of time doing actual UI building and all that, and see if they have any insight for me.
I can check that tree option. I thought that it was working on the folders, but can you test that tree? Just like a
Test
static, that component that you used before, tree.
poetry.
Yeah, display tree.
Which one?
Uh, First one, I guess. Can you make a static input and see how it behaves?
I'm not sure how you get the sub.
Well, you have selected item. I mean, as an output. So, for example, well, it's just one select. But let's see how it works on in the workflow.
Big existing. Not sure if I did the right thing here.
You can just ignore this.
Yeah, I don't know what it does. I don't even know what that field is for. I'll just, but still, it's not
Uh,
really giving us much of a tree. That's what I'm saying. I don't really, I'd have to mess with how this thing gets provisioned.
I might
Yeah, come on,
know.
Gregory.
I'm confirming right now. I think I understand how to use this from an old ticket, but let me check real quick.
Does some type of like tabbing functionality? I guess tab takes you out of this window though.
Pardon me, it's taking me a little bit for this to load for some reason. All right, let's debug it. Let's see if this is what we want. Yes. Okay, okay. So go into the tree nodes, keep it a static input. You're going to put a forward slash after it for anything you want under it. So for you would keep that as just test one for the blanket one, and you'll retype test one. So you actually have to put the first one as test one once again, and then forward slash and whatever you want under that.
Like yes, no,
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
like
And
this
that'll
again,
give you the drop down functionality that you're looking for. Yep,
like that.
perfect.
Ooh, my man said perfect. Let's go. I hope this is perfect. But is this a selectable option or is it just showing things? Does that data pass out?
it does. The only problem is that it's just one selection.
Hmm. Instead of multi-select. Hmm. That's cool functionality though. I'm not gonna lie. I like that. All right, let's think here. So we want multiple options for selection on
Is that somewhere documented that you need to put forward slash two options?
is
Can
that
you
in
do
doc?
like a test one forward slash no forward slash one? Would that create another node under no?
It should.
That's nice.
Yeah, it does. Obviously, my I just have too much stuff on this form right now, an obscene amount of stuff. But the problem is the multi-select is where you're going to be get gotten at. All right, so let me think here.
Well, another option would be to create JavaScript, but to save some time, I've been looking at the JavaScript where you can just steal from somewhere, modify that, and use that as a file instead of trying to convert that into decisions JavaScript. Like
Yeah, another
use
thing I was thinking is maybe just run an active form flow and whatever gets selected, it populates another box and then they can remove or add items to the list from an active form flow. So you could say, because I'm sure that this option for selected will be available in an active form flow. So you could say like tree, you know, form form data component tree view, selected item, add item to list, populate a list somewhere else and just have like another one where they click them that way and it multi-selects them and adds it out. But again, it's not the UI you want. The UI you want is checkboxes.
all the problem to that would be if they selected US and Canada. If they do it like one by one, how would I know that they actually meant to select US and Canada?
Right.
Because by default, if they select US, for example, I default
Yeah.
to all states, then they display the UI and they can unselect one state, for example.
Yeah. Not too sure. I do get what you're saying where you want like checkboxes make the most sense, but I'm trying to think of a way like it can always be done in separation, I'm sure you know, but it's just getting it all in one that auto collapses is going to be a bit of a bear. I wonder if this works for the same. Doesn't look like it works, but it'd be cooler if it did. Nope, doesn't work.
I've got one more theory on this, but may
Let's
require
go.
some external testing. I'm wondering if you could have the first one linked to a header container and just have an active form fill that choose whether to expand that header container or not with the other options.
So you're saying have let's think here. I could probably get rid of this altogether here. Oh, not that.
Gregory, I can do that under headers, but um, when they submit the form, how would they know that they actually selected US? So for example, they expand US header, unselect some state, then go to Canada, that will collapse US and expand Canada provinces. And then when they say done, how would I know that they actually meant to select states in US? Because I will have only the things that are selected in US, but did they want to select US? Or maybe they changed their mind and they unselected US.
Um, I mean, that just seems like it depends on how you want to implement that logic to double check that. Because if you want them to uncheck the US box, you could have a validation that would clear everything under it in the header container. Or if you want them to be able to uncheck it and expand another one, you can just leave it as is and send a pop-up for the validation. That seems more like a design than it does a particular implementation. Maybe I'm not understanding your question correctly.
No, you're right. Uh, yeah, it's just like an extra window saying then which countries did you actually want to select?
Yeah, we could absolutely do that. You could put a pop-up, a confirmation, anything on the button before they proceed with submitting it. There is an option to, once again, maybe when they check out of it, even instead of just having it at the final button, when they uncheck it, they would say, do you wish to clear all selection or keep selection? And they can say yes or no and then proceed from there. Like there are different ways to approach this that we could implement once we figure out how to do the drop-down functionality. But I think the choice on how to implement that check is going to come from how you want to design it and what kind of checks you want to be able to have for your users.
Sure. That's another idea. So for example, if I have that checkbox list, I check US, then I raise an event saying pull US states, then you check all those states, I save it somewhere. Then the problem is how do you, without unchecking US, how do you check which states do you selected or unselected? Which could be another, you know, event.
It could be like if you check a different checkbox, it could collapse the other box with an active form flow. That'd be the idea, is it would either hide it, collapse it, or something like that. And that way they wouldn't actually be technically unchecking the US box. But if they intentionally uncheck the US box, you could have something that would clear all their selections.
If you don't mind, just because we did get a couple more questions, I didn't realize. Apologies to those that put in the
Oh,
questions like
sure.
20 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, I
Um,
don't mind that.
cool. Well, I'll see if I can talk with, and I know Gregory's got a good understanding of this stuff too, but I'll see if I can talk with some stuff and people in PS and see if they've got any like fringe kind of cases. So, Alexander, I see you got questions about unit tests. You've been tasked with setting up for flows that you can use making updates so we don't have to do it manually. Also some AI use cases in V9. Yeah, I got you on both those. Unit test is probably the easiest one to kind of show off just because I can show off some kind of built out ones we already have. Um, essentially, well, I guess I can just do a quick flow here and make sure of what I'm doing. But unit test is basically going to be um, a couple components. Unit test flow. I've obviously made this before, so I don't know where it is at this moment, but um, essentially, with a unit test, um, what you're going to want to do is set up your input data and then set up the rule that you get as output data. So when I go to debug, I can add a new unit test, and I'm going to call this blank unit test. Now from here, I actually have to add some input data, so give me a moment. So we're going to say our input data for this flow is a number. Let's go with an integer just for easy math. And we'll call this introductor or initial number, right? So essentially, then you have data you're going to pass out here at the end. So we'll call this final number, and we'll make this an integer as well. So we have to have those things lined up. We have to have an input, we got to have an output. Feeling good. So now when I go back to that unit test, which I don't think I actually saved, so I'll make a new one. We'll call this unit test one. I've obviously done this a bunch lately. You can set up your initial number here. So you say, okay, I'm going to make my initial number 5 for this test. And you have to set up a rule. So you got to set up a rule that says if, and then you have access to that stuff from the flow. Outcome, let's say outcome done, final number, equal, we'll say greater than or equal to 5. So I know that I'm passing data kind of into this flow with this fake. I'm going to save it real fast. And if I start debugging or I run that unit test from this way,
Work is for lunch. Work is for lunch.
um,
We pay you. I know we do.
geez, cool. That unit test should pass out. So the reason why it's not is because I still have it null. But I can pass this in saying initial number into final number. And now that I do that and run this debug, it should pass. And if you have multiple unit tests set up, you'll get just check marks like that. So again, you can kind of go through and say, okay, let's make another unit test that says, is my test number 2? And we'll make our initial number 3. Again, I'd have to re-provision a rule, or I can take this unit test I already have and just kind of change that initial number right here and say, okay, what about 3? If I run 3 through this, now it fails. Why does it fail? Because 3 is not greater than or equal to 5. So
Now, how would this work with like in a lot of our flows, there's multiple steps that have flows. It
Mhm.
needs to be approved by other people in a team, stuff like that. Of course, we go in and when we're testing and debugging, we go through and impersonate those people and kind of pass it along the flow. How would
yeah,
that work with the debugger? I mean, not the debugger, sorry, the unit testing.
yeah, with unit testing, I mean, you really, like I said, you kind of just got to think of what data, oh, let me undo that one. What data can I input? And then what answer should it be on the tail end? And then, this red line is your flow. Flow. So you'd have to think, like, let's say you're doing something with assignments. You could make your rule at the end, something about like assignment status or something, state equals complete. Like say we have let's kind of go to a project that I know maybe I can build on this with.
And this can all be in, even if there's multiple forms and steps, it can all be under one unit test, right?
Yeah, your unit test is going to work on a flow and all the subflows that exist underneath it.
Okay, great.
So, something a little more linear, and again, if you want a testing ground, I think you did some training stuff, but purchase request is a relatively easy one. You can, let's go to my main flow on here. I can make a unit test or not. I don't have any input data. So you'll have to have input data. That's going to be a bit of it, because you need input data basically to run into your flow. You're not going to be able to set up a unit test and then just take form data, as far as I know. You'll still need to, yeah, you'll have to have input data. So as soon as I make this input data, because you have to have data to run through, like that's the thing before, like I was kind of drawing in that line before. Now that I debug, I have these unit tests, and you can add a new unit test and make the rule something along the lines of, what is the state at the end? You can kind of look, um, into the state at the end, or does the process, do you get certain things out of the truth table or things along those lines? Um, Extension data, purchase request. You can look at the process state. At the end of when you run your flow, does the state equal completed? Like, and you have to have your set states, or like on this particular project, auto approved, right? Um, if I put in a certain value, I gotta make a new one again, I guess. Does that does that process state equal auto approved? And if it does, you'll get a green check mark. And if it doesn't, it'll equal red. But you got to have data to put it on the front end of that. Because again, you kind of have your flow, and you have hard static inputs, like nothing you're really going to change too much. Hard static inputs. And then expected outputs at the end of your flow. And you can always add to your red end step at the end, an additional data to pass out, and it will give you a new thing here, and you can map whatever you want into it. So again, like, clear all my drawings. If I add a variable here at the end called Rob's variable, and I could choose to pass whatever I want into this, right? I can pass anything that's a string. I can pass the request or email, sure. When I go to that debug option again and make a unit test, I can say, does Rob's variable, maybe I didn't save it. Oh, here it is, outcome done, Rob's variable. Does that equal, is that less than, is that greater than, whatever verb you want based on the data type. Does it equal a certain thing? Does it equal yes? You know, and then I don't want to save this, but does that help you at all? Does that answer some of your questions?
It does. And I have one additional question. I mean,
Sure.
I get the general idea with this unit testing.
Cool.
It was more so I just didn't know 100% how to go about it in decisions. Also, my last question is, so we have, you're gonna set up multiple tests, right? So you're gonna be usually testing the same thing with like slight differences. Like,
Yep.
it's just, I pass a string here instead of a digit and see what happens,
Yep.
Instead of rewriting the entire unit test again, is there a way to duplicate the unit test and then just change that one part um, as I go on?
Yep. Copy.
Okay, cool.
So like on this one, we made these on these training challenges. I don't know if you still have
Mhm.
access to these, but if I go to debug and this is split string, I don't have anything in here, but I just made one of these they did Josh, Jed, Kyle, LeBron, Wade, Bosch with commas, AJ, Joel, and Jay with commas, so that when we run these flows, we say, hey, does the outcome list contain
Two brilliant minds over there.
these
You want
three
me to
as
come over there and
individual
bring a
strings? So, again, you can kind of look at some of these training challenges and kind of decipher how those are built out.
Okay, that's great. Because I mean, once I get the initial one running, up and running, I can basically switch out pieces of it as I see fit.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
And then the second question you had about AI, in version
Mhm.
9, there's, if you go up to 9.3, which I believe I'm on, there's some really great, awesome stuff. I mean, I just made some stuff on YouTube about over the 9.3 stuff, and you're more than welcome to kind of watch this in a greater context. I can send this in the chat or email this to you, but this part at least walks through the new AI stuff in 9.3. So there's lots of this common AI. It's mainly going to be based around chat completion. Most of our vendors, so if you look at this list of vendors, Gemini, OpenAI, Google Cloud, Google Vertex, Anthropic, it's all based mainly chat completion. With OpenAI, you're getting given more options. But essentially with it, you can create any prompt and then field those fuel that prompt dynamically using like a merge plain text. So you might have a step in your flow. And again, I unfortunately kind of purged my system here lately. But you'll have a step in your flow. So if I go down here to system administration, features, install a couple of these modules real quick. Common AI, Open AI, sure. Cool.
So are you saying that the most of the use cases here is just mainly telesynths? Like it finishes something you're typing already?
No, it'll do like it'll do like that. I mean, anything that you can do in this world, can you summarize this transcript or whatever? Anything you can do in this world,
Okay.
and then you know, whatever this is, you dynamically populate via decisions.
Okay.
Or you say like, hey, look at this Excel file and tell me common themes. You can still do all of that stuff in decisions. It's just, this is why I say with chat completion, like you're able to send it a message in that capacity. So
Gotcha.
if you can go
Also,
here,
So what we have to do is clarify.
would that be done internally or does it more so like ping the servers, ChatGPT servers,
it pings
and then
it.
come back?
Yep,
Okay.
it pings it and comes back. And you
Because
need
there was some
credits.
worry on our side about like security and stuff like that when using AI. Like I think we've actually have a like we're not allowed to use ChatGPT at our company.
Okay. Then yeah, you might be limited on that one.
Yeah.
I mean, we have other providers. I mean, like I don't know if you guys, if it's just them or, but you I mean we have Gemini, we have Anthropic, we have Bedrock, Vertex.
That's what I'm reading as well. But
We have lots of options, but if if your company's totally against integrating with AI, it's still gonna, you're still gonna have
Not
to pay.
against that one, just more so,
Yeah.
I guess, where we can't control like where our data goes, I guess. Is more
Yeah.
so the worry.
Yeah,
But
I'll just
I'll worry about that later. I'll touch on that part later. I just wanted to
yeah.
double
I'll just show
check.
you, and like I said, any conversation piece that you can make. So now that I've oh, I gotta add it to this version 9. I always forget about this dependencies thing. But as soon as you add it as a dependency, once the server loads up, boom, boom, boom. Now at the very, very top of your flows,
Mhm.
Taking notes, man. I'm never gonna know 424978.
at the very, very top of your flow, you're gonna have AI, and I can say open AI, chat completion. And again, in this prompt field, you can write a prompt. You can select a prompt, get prompt from flow. And now that we have this prompt field, we can go merge plain text and say, tell me more about, you know, current user email based on this information, you know, and you could just kind of whatever you want to do, however you want to field your prompt. I mean, you got to be a prompt engineer a little bit, but you can get that information dynamically, and then it'll send it and it'll give you a response as an output to this step. That's the chat response.
Okay, and then I can pass that somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Last thing on this, these are all outside sources. There's nothing Decisions has itself, right? Like built like
No.
something that your team's built.
It's not the best in the world, and we're still like, it's
Oh,
no,
I've seen
no.
the chat bot.
Yeah,
I've seen the
that's it.
doc bot.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. No, we don't have our own AI engine yet. Like,
There should be a process.
Okay. And how hard would it be to incorporate one that we're building? I know our team's currently using open source tools right now to start building out some AI tools.
yeah, I mean, if they have if any of those open source tools have an API connection string, you can do it as easy as making an integration. I mean, it's literally as easy as copy and paste. What's the name of the tool?
Couldn't even tell you.
What's it called?
No, I'm saying like I'm unsure. Like, what's the name of the
okay.
actual like the tools that we're using?
Well, I was just saying, like, depending on,
You telling me to inactivate the
I don't know the names of any of these, but let's just say hypothetically we're talking about TensorFlow. I don't even know what this is.
Going to
Um,
realize,
You just ping it as an API endpoint. So you could do
Okay.
anything. I mean, literally anything. As long as it has an API endpoint that can be pinged, you can do that with just a simple integration in Decisions. You can go, okay, now that we know that, we can make an integration.
Gotcha. And so we would just like essentially pass along the string and then ping our own service that we kind of created. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. I mean, we already do that a lot with our current APIs, except the output isn't like a generated chat or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, that answers my questions. I appreciate that.
Right on. Anybody got any more final questions? We're kind of on the last couple minutes here. All right, I'm gonna go and end it so I can maybe get some information out of VT. I'm gonna go chat with the professional services builders and see if they have any information on the check down Dropbox. But appreciate everyone joining today. Thank you very much. We'll see you back again tomorrow.